Hello and welcome to the DTMBR podcast. My name is Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boff, Mr. Boffman, man. How are we?
I'm good, Sean. How are you?
I'm splendid. We're both sitting here on this sunny afternoon by the Kinks, drinking cups of leafy teas, and it's very, lockdown Melbourne podcasty vibes, and I'm just happy to be here, Dante.
I'm not going to lie. I was happy to be outside 20 minutes ago, just soaking up the last of the afternoon sun. But I am happy to be here. It's just, I'm reading a good book at the moment.
Can't you do an outside podcast?
Yeah, I probably could, but my housemate is sanding her bedside table. So potentially a little bit of noise interference.
Yeah, not prime podcast real estate.
Yeah, so I'm locked here in the chamber of silence.
Yeah, okay, that's all right. Well, Dante, I'll let you introduce what we're going to talk about today. Another Deep 2 classic that isn't really, but I'm excited.
I feel like we can call it a Deep 2 classic.
Have we done it once?
Yeah, I think we've done it once.
Yeah, nice.
This is our third off season, and we've done it once. And it'll be we've done it once previously. So this is the second time. 2 in 3 years, that's at least cult classic, even if it's not like mainstream classic. Anyway, I digress. So we're doing our off-season grades. We're going to go back through the teams and basically be like, here's what they did. Did we like it? And then because everyone loves easy to understand letter grades, we're going to assign them a letter grade. The catch is the way we've organized it. Instead of doing our usual left and right in conference, we're going to go good and bad. So we're starting off today with the good
and bad and conferences.
The good and bad and conferences. So we're starting off today with the best teams in the league, and we will start at the top and work our way back towards the middle, which means thank you to all of our Utah Jazz fans for your patience, but you're kicking off the show. So congrats. We get a big hand for the Utah Jazz.
This isn't a 4-man weave, so you're not going to get any sound effects, but nice trying. And I'll just build on that and say that our grading system is very, we're trying to keep it as even as possible, and that's obviously hard to do because while some teams might have one max salary spot, some teams might be right up against the cap. So we're going to be grading the teams based on the opportunity they had. So just with the Utah Jazz coming up, they don't have much flexibility. They're likely not going to trade any of their key guys. So we're going to be grading them on what they could do, which is pretty much just extend one player and sign one player. C is average. If you get a C, it's not bad. It just means that you did what you just did, the expected outcome. And obviously A and then B, C. I don't need to say the alphabet. We know how grading works.
Yeah, we know how grades work for the most part.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Dante. Another thing I did want to mention is that obviously the Simmons teams are a little bit TBD, and thank you, Ben Simmons, for making this podcast just have a tiny asterisk on it, because there's about 3 teams here where I'm just like, okay, well, obviously one of them's Philly, but you're like, okay, well, let's hold on. Let's just see what happens with the Simmons trade. But I digress again, and let's get into it with the Utah Jazz. So the things they did this offseason was draft Jared Butler with the 40th pick. They re-signed Mike Conley to a 3 for $72.5 million deal. They signed Rudy Gay to 2 for $12 million, which was their mid-level exception. And they got Hassan Whiteside on what must be a minimum contract. And they traded Eric Paschall in one of the more odd, underreported trades that was just sort of not even a salary dump, a roster spot dump. And they moved on from Derek Favors to OKC and Georges Niang, who went to Philadelphia. Dante, you want to kick us off with your thoughts on Utah's offseason?
So I'm giving them a C+ for a few reasons. Namely, that I don't love getting Mike Conley back on 3 years at almost $25 million a pop. I understand that that's at some level just the going rate, especially when you compare it to what someone like Kyle Lowry got, but there is just the little like heebie-jeebie factor of giving an old small point guard lots of money a long way into the future. And then the other thing for me that is going to dock them is the fact that when they traded Derek Favors to OKC, they had to attach a pick there, which, attaching a pick to salary dump someone that you like deliberately sought out at the start of free agency last year is a pretty big loss, considering that neither the move, obviously this is a last offseason move, but the move didn't work out and you've had to surrender draft capital or trade assets, whichever way you want to look at it, to get off of it. So I think the Rudy Gay and Pascal additions are more likely to be kind of peripheral. And I think stylistically, bringing in Whiteside to be your backup center just locks you into that Gobert style, which we've seen obviously works in the regular season, but then in the postseason, we know exactly what happens, and not having anything else to pivot to, and bringing your backup center in to do the exact same thing that your starting center does, just much worse, when it's been proven that even your starting center doing that well isn't enough. I think that is significant reason to question the moves made by Dennis Lindsay and the front office.
Yeah. All right. Well, first major difference, because I've given them an A+. Derek Favors didn't play well last year. He played well in New Orleans the season prior, but last year was not good. And that was a mistake from the previous offseason. I haven't docked them too much for giving up what was the 30th pick, because they won what was the equivalent of like 60 games again. So I'm looking at it like, you're locked into this team with Donovan Mitchell. You're locked into this team with Rudy Gobert, and they're not going to trade one of those two guys. And yes, they have their foibles in the offseason, and obviously Rudy Gobert, while a defensive player of the year, struggles to defend in space when it really matters, that's simply just the player he is. And I'm not going to critique them on a dude that just helps you win 50 games no matter what, but then struggles in the playoffs. So with their flexibility of, okay, we've got this, and they're going to win their 60 games regardless, what they've done is, using their limited mobility, they've been able to get Rudy Gay, who is an interesting, switchable, flexible player, a bit like Nicholas Batum. Maybe we're going to see a similar renaissance, and maybe he can't be the thorn in Rudy Gobert's side, but they've got Rudy Gay who can play 4 through 5, which is like incredible to say if you just fast forward from 5 years or go back 5 years ago. And then yes, Hassan Whiteside isn't that good, but to go from Derek Favors, who wasn't good last year, getting paid $10 million, to Hassan Whiteside, who also isn't good but still plays a similar role as a backup, and he's only going to be playing behind Rudy Gobert. He's going to be playing like 10-12 minutes on a minimum. So like, you look at the actual skill drop off from Derek Favors to Hassan Whiteside, and then look at their money drop off, and it's like, that's fine. Like, would I have preferred they got JaVale McGee? Sure. I mean, like, you're really splitting hairs there. Jared Butler was supposed to be a first round pick, but he fell with health concerns, which is like, I'm starting to think that's a huge concern considering how far he fell. And he was only eligible for the draft like 2 weeks before the draft. There was actually some murmurs that he might actually miss being drafted at all, which is like, the frick's going on there. I don't know what's happening there. And then, Pascal, as I said at the start, which is one of the more interesting pickups in the whole entire league. Pascal is a good friend of Donovan Mitchell's, and he just wanted to be there, and Golden State wanted a roster spot. So Utah traded a top 55 protected second round pick, which obviously you can just buy for a bag of peanuts on draft night. So it's just like essentially giving Eric Pascal to this team. And it's like, sure, I mean, he's a backup power forward. He can't defend, and he'll start going downhill once every 10 games. And you're like, hang on. But then you realize it's just Eric Pascal. I've tricked myself already. But yeah, I've just said, with their limited flexibility, they got more flexible on the court, and Rudy Gay was one of the best mid-level targets out there, and they got him.
Yeah, I think it all makes sense on paper, but Rudy Gay is old, and Pascal's not that good. So I think
Pascal's not going to play that much though.
But yeah, so that's a fair point. But Rudy Gay being old, you're right in saying that he gives him a little bit of like 4-5 flexibility in a way that Gobert and Whiteside don't. But I think the main thing that aside from the annual like Gobert system meltdown that they have in the playoffs, the other weakness they had is that they just had no one who could defend on the perimeter. And they still don't really have that. None of the players that they've brought in are going to do that. Rudy Gay, you mentioned he's a big wing-sized body who 5 years ago maybe you'd say like, all right, we'll throw him on like the opposing 3 and say like, let's give it a go. But now that's just not how it happens at all. So you're still kind of left with Royce O'Neal as your only like wing
and Joe Ingles and Mike Conley.
Well, I mean, Mike Conley's not stopping, the big like apex wing creators. And to be completely honest, like Ingles' days of locking down Paul George in the playoffs a couple of years ago, like well and truly behind him. He's no longer.
I wouldn't say well and truly. They're behind him. There was 2 years ago.
It was probably 3 years ago, and I watched the playoffs last year as well, so I know what I saw. I trust my tape. Yeah, so I just kind of don't feel like they got appreciably better. Yeah, that's kind of where I end up. It's a lot of money going out to Conley. There's a couple of moves that kind of like suit the system that has been. That there's reasons to question the system. So doubling down again inside the system, while sending out a lot of money and not appreciably improving, I just can't look on it particularly favorably.
Well, 2 things there. Firstly, the Mike Conley deal is only 58 million guaranteed. So as soon as you look at it where it's like, oh, he shit the bed after year 2, well, then they're only guaranteeing him for like $10 million in that final year, and you can just clean your hands of it. That's better. But in terms of the system, this isn't the offseason, nor will probably next offseason be the time that they change the system, because if you're a rich billionaire owning a team and your team will just constantly churn out 60 wins, you're probably going to keep it as it is, because you could just keep saying to your fans, oh, hey, but we're this number 1 seed and we're really good and we just keep winning games. Donovan Mitchell's getting better. You and I both don't think they're going to win a title. My days of thinking they're going to win a title in the past, because as we said at the start, Gobert cannot defend in space in the playoffs. And it's like, this isn't the time to change the system. And yes, like the system might not work, but this is the system they have. And for their flexibility, I think they did a good job.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. But I just kind of wonder, like, with someone like, let's say, like the LeBronto era Raptors, like doing the same thing again and just expecting it to be different, like it gives me similar vibes here, where like, yes, it's the system. Yes, they're not going to change it, but adding a little bit of flexibility inside it in like a meaningful way. Like Rudy Gay is not going to play 25 minutes a game for you in a way that's going to substantially change the way that you do things. Obviously, I talked about Whiteside kind of just being like a shitty Gobert replica. The system is the system. They're going to play with the system probably for as long as they have Dennis Lindsay and Quinn Snyder as GM and coach. But I think there is scope for a little bit more exploration, especially when I don't think it's an overstatement to say that like the Jazz are replicating immense Clipper energy at the moment, in the sense of like, well, I'll believe it when I see it. Like, you can win 60 games, you can be the 1 seed, you can steamroll the first round, and I'll believe it when I see you actually like putting up a fight in the second round, because that's what we've seen. We've seen the wheels fall off at that exact spot the last 3 seasons. So yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, because as always, they're very well thought out and prescient points made by you, but I can't bring myself completely over to your.
Yeah, I understand, because you're banging your head against the wall. Did you ever play Far Cry 3 in like the PlayStation 3 era?
No, I was never a Far Cry man.
Well, there was this dude, there was this bad guy called Vast, and this is like a deep take at the back of my brain that you just like struck when you said doing the same thing over and over again, because there's this moment in the game when you get captured, you're a hostage, and there's this psychopath in front of you, Vast, who's just like, you know what insanity is? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. And it got turned into like, you can imagine like quote epic wallpapers that were like 720p back in 2015. They're like, whoa, look at the quality. It looks like a real human. And like, it was obviously a PlayStation 3 game, so it doesn't look that good. But yeah, he just says the definition of insanity, paraphrasing, he's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something to change. The Utah Jazz. But
should we get this bloke to kidnap Dennis Lindsay and like tell him that?
I mean, like, it's a little bit different to like strictly being insane, because if you can be insane and just keep making money and over again, it's probably a fine way to be.
Yeah, I mean, like when you look at it that way, yeah, I tend to agree.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to your Phoenix Suns. And do you want to go through their particulars?
So we brought back Chris Paul on a partially guaranteed 4-year, $120 million deal. Cameron Payne re-signed on a 3-year, $19 million deal. Everybody's favorite bench guy, Abdel Nader, came back on a 2-year, $4 million deal. and Franco Minsky re-signed for the minimum, God bless him, as well as JaVale McGee coming in on a 1-year, $5 million deal, and everyone's favorite erstwhile Nick Elf Payton coming in. We also traded Javon Carter for Landry Shamet, who comes from the Brooklyn Nets, and Torrey Craig signed for Indiana, and I've just caught myself saying Craig. I have to correct myself
because I spelled Craig.
Yeah, you fucking tripped me up. Torrey Craig, because that's how we say Craig, Craig, signed for Indiana. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a B. Sean, what say you?
Yeah, so I've actually given them an A+, and I was a little bit worried when I was writing these ratings because I'm like, shit, 2 teams in, 2 A+, but I think they're my only A+ for the whole entire offseason, where Cameron Payne might be the best deal of this whole entire offseason. Like, obviously the best deal is probably like someone like Steph Curry, just because he's Steph Curry. But for someone like Cameron Payne, who deserves more money than this, you got him at 3 for 19. Chris Paul had you guys over a barrel, and even if you didn't make the finals, he would have you over a barrel because you've already committed to him. But the fact that you're able to come out of it with 4 for 120, which is a lot, but as you said, partially guaranteed. And that final year's got like half guaranteed, and there's also a partial guarantee in the third year, which is like incredible that he's giving that up when you think someone like New York would just throw that money at him. Abdel Nader, I can fully see him outplaying this contract, and it's on a 2-year deal, which is like saves the team even more. And then just before, like, Javon Carter for Landry Shamet, I'd love to see your thoughts on it, but like Javon Carter isn't, like, as you said, he's good at things that Phoenix didn't need. And then you just take a look at Landry, which is like, what's this, the third team taking a look at Landry? But look, you've scraped the carcass of Alfred Payton off of Times Square. I think he was like stuck to that bull and like, you know, some end of the Joker scenes. But
he had to glue his skull back together.
If you had JaVale McGee on 1 year, $5 million last year, do you win the title?
Maybe. Like, we need Booker to not shoot like, 42% down the stretch.
But you also need less Franco Minsky and less Darius Saric for 1
minute.
We
had the Franco Minsky game where he came in.
No, you didn't.
He came in with 10 points. He had that nice little drive from the perimeter into the lane, and then that
one of them,
fake spin.
One of them was a skill play. The rest were all opportunistic. Like, it was a Franco Minsky game, but it's not like the Kelly Olynyk game.
Are you saying that Michael Jordan wasn't opportunistic? Opportunism is a skill.
Yeah, he crossed over Byron Russell, and it's like he had the opportunity to shoot. Like, anyone would take that. No, don't worry about the crossover. So I've given them an A+, but you've given them a B. Why am I more keen on your Phoenix Suns?
Well, because, if there's one thing that we know about me and Phoenix Suns, Sean, it's that I'm pretty cautious when it comes to the Suns. In all seriousness, though, I did originally give them a B+. But I just decided to temper myself and knock myself down a half grade. I think the discussion with the Chris Paul deal, whilst it's easy to understand in binaries, like you look at the one side being completely guaranteed 4 years, 120, and the other side being what it kind of is, where it's like partially guaranteed. But it's good to have that flexibility. But even if those guarantees don't come through, the Suns are still kind of in a bit of a tricky spot. So I believe the contract is 2 years fully guaranteed, and then in the third year there's a player option, and then the fourth year is partially guaranteed. So if Chris Paul's bad, so I think there's a team option in the third year. So if Chris Paul's bad, yes, you can wash your hands of that the last 2 years of the deal and say, okay, like we're moving on. But then you still have a big hole to fill. And if his progression is like bit by bit over the course of this deal, like year by year, and it's not like he just falls off of a cliff, you're going to potentially be in a situation where you are actually paying him more than he's worth, whether that's paying him his full value, which you've accepted on the team option in year 3 at 30 million, or even paying him, what's the guarantee that 39-year-old Chris Paul is going to be worth 20 million in the fourth year of this deal? Like, it's kind of low. So again, with Conley, we'll get to this with the Heat, like you pay the sticker price for a player of Chris Paul's pedigree, but it's not like completely risk-free just because we've got elements of it that are somewhat protected. I do think the campaign deal is just like, fucking take a bow. Forgot now general manager's name now. Jeez, he's completely
James Jones.
James Jones, thanks. I'm picturing his head floating at me, and I couldn't remember his name. That's embarrassing. Take a bow, James Jones, because people were talking about campaign potentially being a full mid-level guy, and looking at like a 3-year 30 or 4-year $40-ish million deal. So I think the fact that we've been able to bring him back is a huge boon, and hopefully he can keep Alfred Payton glued to the pine in his second tour of duty in Phoenix, because the first time wasn't that good, which I think maybe is that a theme with Alfred Payton going places, is that most people are like, yeah, wasn't that good.
But he's now the third point guard, so like even if he's not that good, it's not going to affect you. And it's like Chris Paul rest 20 games, Alfred Payton's your backup, and hey, maybe even better, someone else is your backup.
Yeah. Nader is genuinely really good, and Nader will absolutely outplay the value of that contract. The thing for him is just being
on
healthy,
the court, yeah,
because he missed a lot of time during the season, but they really like him there, and he is genuinely like really, really useful player. Heaps of energy. I think losing Torrey Craig hurts maybe a bit more than he's being acknowledged, because he played a lot for us in the postseason, and just his positional flexibility being so big to just go through the 3 and the 4 spot. Cam Johnson's had a lot of success at the 4, so has Jay Crowder, but neither of them are as big as Torrey Craig, where you can kind of get a real good facsimile of a genuine power forward size. Like they're both definitely small ball forwards.
Torrey Craig's underappreciated wherever he is, I reckon.
Yeah, I understand the the financials behind it, but it was only a 2-year $10 million deal that he signed with Indiana. So I would have really loved to see like him come back on such a small deal, even if it means dipping into the tax a little bit more.
I don't reckon Denver should have let him go in the first place as well. Like they were thinking of offering him, like they declined to offer him like $4 million a year initially. And it's like, okay, that's a lot of pressure on Aaron Gordon, who wasn't there yet, and PJ Dozier to be your wing stopper.
Yeah, and I mean that's the role that he can play. You can just kind of throw him on somebody. Not that he's like an all defense level player, but if he was on Utah, you just say, all right, like you're going to go and defend.
He just doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah, he doesn't, but he's big. He's a good rebounder. He's smart positionally. He's athletic enough to get where he wants to go.
Hits open threes.
Yeah,
but on the other side of the coin, 2 years, $10 million in Indiana, who obviously we're going to talk about, is a little bit much.
Well, I mean, maybe him being there is another reason why they choose to let Karis LeVert go. If they choose to listen to my fake trade from last episode.
True. They're just talking about you. All right, so you've given Phoenix a B. I've given them A+. Any further comments?
No, I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to shed my caution and really just unleash myself on these ratings.
All right, so next team are the Philadelphia 76ers, who drafted Jaden Springer 28th. They re-signed Joel Embiid at 4 for $196, re-signed Danny Green at 2 for $20, and the Furkan Korkmaz at 3 for $15. They signed Georges Niang on a minimum away from Utah, and they got Andre Drummond. They haven't traded Ben Simmons yet, and they haven't received anything in trade from Ben Simmons, and they let Dwight Howard and George Hill walk. You've given them an ungraded, which is completely fair enough. I've given them a C, just based on what they have done already. This is fine. Like, you get a new backup to replace Dwight Howard. He's got the similar amount of name value, if that means anything to you. George Hill hurt, but George Hill's like 30 million years old. Danny Green, just keep Danny Green on your team and you'll keep winning games. Joel Embiid, I'm not going to praise them for re-signing a dude and giving someone $200 million. Like, if someone's worth $200 million, probably a reason for that, and he's not John Wall. But yeah, you're just sort of waiting for Ben Simmons, aren't you? Like, that will completely change this grade, which is why I probably should have given it ungraded like you.
Yeah, well, I just think depending on what they bring in, yeah, you're right. It will completely, it could catapult it or it could submarine it, because, these are moves around the periphery, with the exception of Embiid, which was always going to happen. So I don't even think it bears it bears mentioning. But bringing Green back is good. His last deal was 2 years 30, so bringing him back on 2 years 20 is good value, presuming that his play hasn't dropped off. And bringing back the Cork on 3 years 15 is nice Danny Green insurance. And isn't it interesting that Georges Niang, very similar kind of play style to Ben Simmons in some ways, in that he's a bigger guy, can handle the ball a little bit, likes to wheel and deal.
Laser from 3.
Yeah, so maybe they've got a ready-made Simmons replacement in Georges Niang. Just a thought.
It's pretty passive-aggressive, though. It's just like, oh, well, we're signing you back up, but like, if you don't play at the start of the year, he's very, very Ryan Anderson plug and play. We'll just sit there on offense. Like, we'll see how we go.
Yeah, space the floor for Embiid, and Embiid can drop 35. I just think any commentary like on anything other than these peripheral moves is maybe going to be moot before the season even starts, because it's going to completely recontextualize everything that we're talking about, dependent on where Simmons goes and what they get back for him.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll move on to the Brooklyn Nets. And do you want to give their moves?
So through the draft, which we love this, they added Cam Thomas and Day'Ron Sharpe with the 27th and 29th picks, respectively. They brought back Kevin Durant and Bruce Brown on his qualifying offer, re-signed Blake Griffin to the minimum, and then in free agency brought in Paddy Mills, DeAndre Bembry, Paul Millsap, James Johnson, Lamarcus Aldridge, and then they brought in Jahlil Okafor, remember him, Sekou Doumbouya, and Javon Carter in trades, losing Spencer Dinwiddie to Washington, Jeff Green to Denver, and Elisa Johnson to Chicago. And then DeAndre Jordan now on the Lakers. And as we talked about just before, Landry Shamet in Phoenix. He was traded for Javon Carter. So I've gone A+. This is my first A+.
Go on, explain it.
Well, I'm glad you asked. I just feel like they got better in really appreciable ways, even with just with the players that they've brought in, let alone like the numbers involved. So Paddy Mills is just going to be so lethal here. Obviously, we've just seen him light it up in the Olympics, as he does every time around. But Paddy Mills working off the ball around their 3 stars, not really needing to have much of the ball in his hands, although being able to kind of step in and play 30 minutes a game when you've got that game where, Harden and Kyrie are out through injury. He can do that. He's earning $6 million a year, which is a steal. Millsap and James Johnson, like just for a little bit of forward depth behind KD and Blake. DeAndre Bembry, make of it what you will. Lamarcus Aldridge, unretired. Like, what was all that for?
They just healed him.
Yeah, they healed him, yeah. So I bet Chris Bosh wishes he knew Lamarcus Aldridge's doctor. But not losing Bruce Brown and also not having to shell out to pay him is really useful. Obviously, we've seen how he can kind of be used as a almost as like a rim running big, despite the fact that he stands all of 6'4". And then they're draft guys. Cam Thomas is forward depth, someone who's got appreciable skills right now, being a pretty gifted scorer. We'll see what else, but it helps with rookies if they've got one thing that they can come in and do at like a good level. So he should be able to get game time. This
team definitely needs more wing scoring.
No, it's the same thing with Mills though, where it's like there's going to be games where
everyone's injured.
Everyone's injured and KD is only playing 25 minutes, and it's like, well, if you can get 22 from Cam Thomas and 18 from Paddy Mills, like you're in business.
Yep.
And I think just one thing that I love. And I mentioned it on a podcast a couple of episodes ago, but it's bringing in Javon Carter for this team, because like Shamet just gives them something that they can completely replace with their stars and with Paddy Mills. But Carter gives them something that they didn't really have, which is just that tenacious on-ball defense. And his weaknesses as a player is, he's a point guard who can't handle the ball or play make. So take the ball out of his hands. On offense, just let him hit spot up threes, which is what he's actually quite good at. And then on D, just put him in there and let him just harass someone. Like, good luck when Jamal Murray comes back and he's got to deal with, 15 minutes of Javon Carter in the third quarter.
It's such a perfect fit. Like, obviously, we just saw that Landry Shamet didn't work, but it's such a perfect fit for Javon Carter. And like, I'm happy for him as someone who saw him throw the second pitch for the like the New Orleans Baby Cakes a couple of years ago when he was a rookie with Triple J.
Yeah, he's a really good fit. I just think that they brought back some real key role players, brought in some real key role players, and then some moves around the edges just to give them that flexibility. Like if you're playing against a team that's going small against you, just throw Lamarcus Aldridge in there and say, all right, big fella, get us 12 points from the mid range. Javon Carter, you can throw in there and say, just harass the opposing ball handler. I think that this is a really good offseason, and barring injury, I think that these guys are the clear favorites to win a chip. Tell me why you've gone B+. I can tell that you wanted to go A. I could see that you're just itching for it.
I had B+ here, and like one of the points I've got here is that they were title contenders last year, possibly the favorite, and they're likely the favorite next year, and they possibly had the best offseason out of all the contenders, which is like, you go from the best to even better. And like Paddy Mills might be the best MLE dude signed. You've obviously re-signed Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin. Healing Lamarcus Aldridge is just magical.
Wild.
Just the thing. So obviously there's the DeAndre Jordan salary dump, which is completely fine, like had to be done, and thank goodness for Kyrie and KD just getting over the fact that this dude's not contributing to winning basketball and he doesn't need to be there anymore. So they got Jahlil Okafor, they got Sekou Doumbouya. I don't expect either of them to play a single game in a Brooklyn Nets jersey. Sekou's getting paid $5 million next year, and if he just gets moved, they're saving like at least $10 million in just taxes, just pure taxes. So that's like, that's fine. Like I'm not going to look at it as those two as playing. The reason I've gone down from an A+ to an A, however, is that they pretty much gave Jeff Green's money to Paul Millsap, which I would much rather have Jeff Green, just because you've already got someone like Blake Griffin who, yes, like Paul Millsap historically has been able to switch onto on pick and rolls and be like that big, that's a little bit quick-footed.
Yeah, but that's historically.
Exactly right. And now he's much slower. And then just like Blake Griffin, he's someone who you want under the rim, but they're also not a traditional center. And it's like, okay, you've sort of got two of the same player here, which is like less versatility for Steve Nash, just being able to throw different dudes out there. Same with Lamarcus Aldridge. Like, okay, he's going to be scoring in the regular season and not touching the court in the playoffs. So it's like, okay, you've got two Blake Griffins now with Paul Millsap. I'd much rather Jeff Green. And the fact that Bruce Brown is on his qualifying offer, when they could have just paid him now, like maybe there's some tax concerns, but like how much is Bruce Brown asking for? And now that he's on his qualifying offer, next season he's going to be fully unrestricted. And like if he does exactly the same thing he did this past year, there might just be some team that's like, hey, that's the exact sort of dude we need, like a Draymond Green light just to unlock our offense. And if you've got the cap space, why not just throw like $10 million at him, which is just like absurdity, right? But what if, Brooklyn could have just paid him something that he wanted this year? It couldn't have been that much. And then you've got the certainty of having Bruce Brown. Whereas next year, what if Memphis is just like, hey, you would be awesome next to Jaren Jackson Jr. Like think about that front court as well. It's just like, just pay Bruce Brown.
But I kind of think though they're just happy that he's still around on the qualifying offer, that they didn't have to match an offer for him, because I don't think they want to pay him because his role is
so unique,
niche enough, but also sporadic enough in that he's not someone who you're like, every team we play against there's that 20 minutes for Bruce Brown to do what he does. It's like he might only play
every second series.
A couple of exactly. Might be in the postseason. It might be a team that he really just unlocks everything you want to do, and in the other one, they might be playing a huge front line and he just doesn't have a role. Especially as he transitions away from being a ball handling player to more of a slasher and an inside kind of guy. So I just think they'd be stoked just to have him on a cost control contract for one more year, and they'll say
just have him like he's definitely playing basketball for you next year.
Yeah, if it comes to next offseason, someone wants to throw seven over 3, 3 years 21 at him, I think they'll just say, Bruce, you've been a tremendous servant to this basketball club. Good luck and see you later. Enjoy your ring. Take it with you.
Yeah, I would happily bump this up to an A. Like you might have just talked me into it because the only thing I don't love is just having Paul Millsap and Blake Griffin and Lamarcus Aldridge.
Do you think there's a chance that they'll keep Sekou? Because I was just thinking about it, and I mean, like, there's potentially not been a worse development spot in the last couple of years than Detroit. And if you bring Sekou, who in theory is that big switchable wing, into a
I would
situation
love it,
with a bunch of forwards who can teach him how to actually do it. If you assume that the kid can play at all, which is not necessarily a safe assumption.
I don't know if you watched that 1 month 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it was only 2 years ago that people were like, Sekou
Sean was right.
Christian Wood.
Yeah, that was pretty sexy though. Come on, man.
Look where we are now. But I mean, Joey Ty has bottomless pockets. So I wouldn't put it outside the realm possibility that they do decide to keep him. Although he could just be, that.
But like, who are you giving up to keep him? Like, you're going to cut Lamarcus Aldridge again?
Well, what is Lamarcus Aldridge doing here?
I don't know. It must have been guaranteed. Like when he was still on the team, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to retire. Fucking write a Players Tribune article. But if I'm better, like, I'll be back.
I don't know that that's how contracts work, though. I don't think that you can just retire and then be like, I'm back, and you have to have me on the team.
Yeah.
What's
he doing?
I want the story on how he actually is back, because I feel like it just popped up in the Bleacher Report app like 4 thumb scrolls down. Like Lamarcus Aldridge is back, rejoins Brooklyn. It's like, well, what this guy was like, I was told by the doctors, like, I might die if I play because I have this heart condition. It's like, what?
Dude, he said all the shit. He had the scathing comments about being the second option in Portland. And he's like, I wanted to be better than Dame. So then I went to San Antonio. I thought I was better than Kawhi. He's already fucking kicked and screamed on the way out the door.
Yeah.
Not that anyone was listening, because he's always second.
Yeah, well, he is. Yeah, he is always second. Lamarcus Aldridge just finished last. Weird. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I just think that they have taken the more is more approach this offseason and just said, even though there's potentially a bunch of like players who are past it, or maybe they're a bit one-dimensional, let's just bring them all in and let's give our brains trust coaching staff the option to use them when they feel the time is right, which obviously you got to put your faith in Stevie and Mikey D to do that when they believe it. So I'm glad I've talked you up to an A.
Yeah, I'll change that in the sheet. So you said the particulars for Brooklyn. So I'll talk about the LA Clippers, who drafted Keon Johnson 21st. They re-signed Kawhi on 4 for 176, Reggie Jackson 2 for 22, Nicholas Batum 2 for the mini mid level. They signed Justice Winslow 2 for 8, and they traded a handful of players for Eric Bledsoe, and the only real free agent that's left is DeMarcus Cousins. I've gone and given them a B, just like you, which is very sweet. And it's like, I think they did a great job at calling Kawhi's bluff, because if you remember, Kawhi was going to like shop around to some teams, and then he was going to come back to the Clippers and be like, oh, well, you know what, how about I take a 1+1 and we'll just do this whole thing a year from now when I haven't played a single game. And after groveling to Kawhi for the past 5 to 10 years, the Clippers are finally like, no, you fucking tore your ACL. You are just signing this contract. Lock up your money. We want security. We're not going to be like stressed out. They really put their foot down. And like, I hate that Nicholas Batum came back here, because like, if Kawhi does miss the whole entire year, like, yes, Paul George is good, and like they've got a bunch of role players around one superstar now. But like, Batum, man, like, you're not going to win a title there. I know they helped you win. And speaking of helping you get back into form, there's Reggie Jackson. And I don't really like the Reggie Jackson contract. He shot the shit out of the ball this past season, obviously, like, rejuvenated his career as well. But he is one of the worst scorers at the rim. According to Cleaning the Glass, he shot 56% at the rim. And it just doesn't bode well that a lot of his shots were catch and shoot, or just like one dribble pull-ups from three, playing next to Paul George and a guy like Kawhi, who are just going to attract so much attention. So as soon as Kawhi's gone, it's like, okay, Reggie, maybe you have to create for yourself, and he created for himself plenty in that series against the Suns, but that's a pretty small sample size. So I'm just a little bit worried about the Reggie Jackson contract, and I hope it goes poorly because the Clippers are the Clippers.
Yeah, it's true. The Clippers are the Clippers. I fully concur. I think with Jackson though, you just kind of need to bring someone who can create their own shot back. Whether the shot is good or whether they make it at some level is kind of irrelevant, because with Kawhi gone, you just need someone who can handle the ball and play make and get their own shot. So I think that bringing him back on, it's 2 years, 22. So this is a dude who was signed when Detroit bought him out, was almost out of the league to the point where he's in tears talking about it after the postseason. That lets you know how close that he felt that he was to being out of the league. So you'd think then giving $11 million guaranteed for each season for someone like that is maybe a little bit rich, especially when you consider that Batum is getting paid $3 million a year. But I just think bringing in someone who can do that from the point guard spot is important, especially because the one thing that everyone's been talking about this team the last 2 years is they need to add a point guard.
Well, what does that mean for Eric Bledsoe?
Well, I mean, when was Eric Bledsoe's last high leverage playoff moment where you were saying, yeah, Eric Bledsoe is creating his own shot and I'm comfortable with it?
Well, not even the playoffs. I think you just have to worry about the regular season, just like papering over Kawhi's absence.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Bledsoe, I think condensing Rondo and Beverly into Eric Bledsoe is a good move. I think it's pretty low risk because a motivated Eric Bledsoe can give you a lot of what Patrick Beverly gives you. And you're taking the punt and saying, Eric Bledsoe actually was good with the Bucks 2 years ago in the
last year's an aberration.
Yeah, he did churn out like a kind of a 16-6 with good defense, playing off a ball dominant wing, which is going to be something similar to what he's asked to do here. But I think the small sample size or not, I'm more comfortable with Reggie Jackson being a little bit more of a score first guard than I am with Eric Bledsoe at this point in his career, because that's not necessarily what he excels at now.
And we're still both on a B as well, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that like getting Kawhi, just to re-sign on a 4-year deal is an absolute boon. I think drafting Keon Johnson, who was someone who in the weeks leading up to the draft, he was being talked about in like the five or six range, and he's dropped. So that's opportunistic as all hell. He plays the wing. Kawhi's out. All right, bring him in. Let's see what he can do. In a similar vein to Cam Thomas in Brooklyn, being like, all right, this is a dude who's a scorer. Let's bring him in and see what he can do, knowing that our star wings are going to miss some time. Batum coming back is a massive win as well. Obviously, we've seen how important he is, and Winslow is a swing.
But one thing I like about this offseason, why I gave it a B, is that all of their swings and all of their retentions are all 2-year deals. So when Kawhi's back next year and they're competing for a title, you've got these swings, and if they miss, get rid of them. But if they hit, you've got these dudes locked down for the next time you're ready to compete.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they'll, by the time Kawhi's back, they'll be expiring, so they're much more movable. You can condense them into a trade if you need to, or you just play the season out with that optionality to re-sign them or not. So I think it's a good, not great off season, and I think this team's ceiling was set the moment that Kawhi was announced out for the season.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
Nothing they could have done would have changed that. They did well within the confines of what they were working with, but at the same time, they didn't, blow anyone away.
Yeah. So just final point before we move on, Justice Winslow is guaranteed $4 million this year and next year. So if they can just wash their hands of it either this year or next year, and it's only going to be $8 million in total, hitting them. Yeah.
Well, let's see if that bloke can actually get on the court.
Yeah.
There's another one who's where's he been?
All right, so moving on to the next team, which is the Denver Nuggets. They drafted Bones Highland with the 26th pick. They re-signed Will Barton at 2 for 30, Austin Rivers on the minimum, JaMychal Green at 2 for 26. Is that a typo? I think that might be a typo. I think it was 2 for 16. And they retained Marcus Howard on a two-way contract. Then they signed Jeff Green from Brooklyn at 2 for 9, lost JaVale McGee and Paul Millsap, and they made no trades. I have given them a B because similar to the Kawhi Leonard thing, it's like you're missing Jamal Murray. The whole thing with this offseason is to find someone who can help you contend in 2022-23. And I think that picking up Jeff Green is an excellent move just in terms of having another guy who can throw out there on the big wings. He's a little bit switchy on defense, even though Mike Malone hates being switchy on defense. You've just got to go with versatility on a 2-year deal, and he's going to help you win when Jamal's ready. But as Tim Connolly just loves to do, he loves to bank on internal improvement. So instead of going out and getting like Avery Bradley, or someone like Lou Williams, right? Instead of going out and getting that just to absorb just a tiny fraction of those Jamal Murray touches, they're like, no, Bones Highland, he's probably going to be like our third, fourth string guard. But Will Barton, you can step up, you're the starter. Michael Porter Jr., as soon as Jamal went down, he averaged like 24 points as well. So you got Michael Porter Jr., who's going to take up a lot of those Jamal shots on the wing, and pretty quiet offseason, which is fine. And I like the fact that I was a little bit worried that Will Barton and JaMychal Green declined their player options heading into this offseason. But again, the same thing with Kawhi. You've got these guys on 2-year deals so that when you are ready to contend, you've got these guys here. And you've got a core that I think will honestly be like one of the top 5 title contenders when Jamal's back fully healthy 12 months from now.
Yeah, I think it's a very salient point that you make, that they're similar to the Clippers in their
treading waterisms.
Yeah, they just kind of have a bit more leeway this season where it doesn't really matter what they do. My initial reaction to the Will Barton deal was just that, are we sure that Will Barton is good? Which I'm not in a vacuum, and that's a lot of money. But yeah, by the time it actually matters, it'll be a 1 year 15. And I take it that you're quite high on Jeff Green coming in place of Paul Millsap, presumably to play the exact same role.
Yeah. And like you've got some instances, because Michael Malone plays like 9 players in the playoffs. You've got some instances where it's like, okay, you really need a change of pace. Jokic isn't doing it. So for the 5 minutes he sits, how's Jeff Green look at backup center? And if you want to go with a traditional big, well, you don't really have one because you've got a Zeke Naji and Bol as the only guaranteed centers on that team behind Nikola Jokic. But you've just got a different look. And like, I just love having different looks and just being able to do something a little bit different, because that's what you need. And especially in the playoffs, which we're going to find out. Look, this team's probably going to make the playoffs again, and they're going to be fine, but you're not going to expect anything of them this year while Jamal recovers from his ACL tear.
Is your namesake Nashawn Bones Highland going to be Rookie of the Year?
No. He might be like his ceiling is like a Jamal Crawford type, but that's 5 years from now.
So you're saying that he's going to be Rookie Emmanuel Quickly?
Yeah, he actually he plays a lot like Emmanuel Quickly, like the floater god, the floater king, but also really slender, slighter frame. So as soon as he runs into the paint, he's just getting bullied. I don't know why he's smiling. Like, it's just a good comp. Like,
because I'm thinking what you said. You said Lord of the Floater. What was Quickly's nickname? He had some fun.
It wasn't a nickname, but he's like, yeah, I put it up there. Someone asked him what he does with his floaters, and he goes, yeah, I just throw them up there, and God does the rest.
There was a nickname, the Goat of the Float.
That's yeah. Well, like
Goat of the Float. And then the other thing that I was thinking about is the time that you said that Emmanuel Quickly looks like one of the witches from Roald Dahl's The Witches, which he definitely does.
He really does, man, like real bad. I mean, if anything, Bones Highland's much more attractive than Quickly.
I'm just sitting here with this big stupid grin on my face, and you think that
Anne Hathaway.
But I'm actually just thinking about The Witches.
Just thinking about Anne Hathaway, like once a week for me. This is pretty treading water. I'm happy to move on.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the Milwaukee Bucks, who added Georgios Kalaitzakis. There you go, Sean. That's how you do it. Through the draft, they signed George Hill to a 2 years, $8 million, and then they brought in Rodney Hood and everybody's favorite Boston wing Semi Ojeleye on minimums, and then re-signed Bobby Portis to 2 years, 9. And then you've written here Giannis's brother. Hard to say which one. And then they brought in Grayson Allen from Memphis via trade. They lost PJ Tucker and Bryn Forbes, and also Sam Merrill, who went out in the Grayson Allen trade. But Bobby Portis coming back on that $9 million here is pretty good. I've given them a C+ because I feel like these moves again are kind of like low wattage and peripheral at best. But people were talking about Portis opting out of his deal, which he ended up doing, to go and sign a monster Bobby Portis deal, like a 2 years, $18 million deal. And I think his contract was like, I think his player option for this season was like 3.8 million, and he's re-signed on 2 years, $9 million. So he's taken an extra year of a $700,000 pay rise after the performance that he put out against the Phoenix Suns in the NBA Finals. And I think, like, no joke, this is not a sarcastic comment. I think that's one of the biggest surprises of free agency, that he opted out, and everyone's like, Bobby Portis, man, he's a difference maker. Some team is going to be really grateful to have him. And then he's just like, yeah, I'll just come back for not even $750,000 more. Are
you serious?
Yeah, I'm being serious because not in terms of, I think Bobby Portis is this amazing difference maker, like he's going to swing anything for this team.
Yeah, or any other team for that matter.
I'm just talking about the discourse that was being had in the early days of the offseason, post-championship, and pre-free agency. People were saying like a team is going to offer Bobby Portis $15, $20, $30 million, because that's just what happens when a good, not great role player pops off in the fucking finals and helps his team win a ring and then hits free agency. They tend to get paid a little bit. And the fact that he opted out, which is a clear signal of intent, like, I'm chasing the bag, only to come back to the same place for decidedly less than a bag.
I don't think he's good. And I think this just tells you that the rest of the league doesn't think he's good either.
Sean, I'll just direct you. Look at his fingers. I tell you what you see. You're going to see a big, fat NBA championship ring.
Yeah, but he did it against a Phoenix Suns team that had no backup center. Like, he did not.
What are we talking about? We spent 5 minutes talking about Frank Kaminsky.
He didn't touch the court in the Brooklyn series because he was purely unplayable.
Because you didn't want to see him get absolutely baptized by KD.
Like, he is a poor man's Montrezl Harrell, and I don't think there's any upside there whatsoever.
Wow.
It's like he'll get some like opportunistic buckets of offensive rebounds, and he does a great job in the regular season at soaking up minutes. But in the playoffs, like, he's not good enough to like score on mismatches, and he's not good enough to hang on the wing. Can't even hang down low. This is how much Bobby Portis is worth, man.
I think that you're leaning into this Bobby Portis is terrible angle just because it's where you feel that you are. And you've painted me as I'm
not even painting you anymore.
You've painted me as this Bobby Portis super fan, and you just feel that to bring the levity and the balance to the podcast, the levity and the balance that the Deep 2 is known for, might I add. You feel that you have to just be this Bobby Portis hater. Bobby Portis is worth more than $4.5 million. That's my hot take. Bobby Portis is worth $6 to $8 million, especially after he wasn't going up against the toughest matchups in the NBA, going up against Frank Kaminsky and, like Cam Johnson down low. But guess what, Sean? During the regular season, there's plenty of Frank Kaminsky and Cam Johnsons down low, and he's going to help them win games during the regular season when...
is that their goal? Is their goal to win games in the regular season?
Well, you can't give Utah props for saying that they've just reinforced the system and that I'm giving them a good grade because I know that they're just going to come out and win 60 games again and then do the opposite for Milwaukee. I think that is the definition of changing the rules just because Bobby Portis is involved.
So with Utah, they got Rudy Gay, who gives them different looks. Bobby Portis gives you a different look from Brook Lopez, and it's worse. They didn't
get Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay was already there. Like Rudy Gay is the system, whereas
No,
Bobby
no, no.
Portis
You're
is
thinking
like
of
the
Rudy Gobert. They signed
Yeah,
Rudy
yeah,
Gay.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I guess
Wow.
I misheard. I guess I'm
The
wrong.
debating team called and they just kicked you off, Dante. That's the surefire way to lose an argument. So
Jeez.
I'll take the talking stick from you. I really got angry at the Milwaukee Bucks after not paying PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker went to Miami, said, "Fuck man, I just wanted $15 million." I was like, "Me too, PJ." And he goes, "Yeah," and they wouldn't give it to me. I'm like, "They wouldn't give it to me either." And then I was like, "This is really bad." And like, Alessio put all of us onto the Pod Don't Lie take, where they used some choice words to describe the Bucks ownership for not wanting to pay the luxury tax. But that was early on in free agency. At the end of free agency, after bringing in George Hill on 2 for $8, and after trading for Grayson Allen and after signing Bobby Portis, they actually pay what they would have paid in luxury tax if they had PJ Tucker. So would you rather PJ Tucker and one of George Hill, Bobby Portis, and Grayson Allen, or no PJ Tucker and the 3 dudes they brought in? Because that's the equation, because they're paying the exact same in luxury tax if they had done that. And they have said, we don't want PJ Tucker. We would prefer to make this trade for Grayson Allen, George Hill, Bobby Portis. And I think that's wrong because, yes, they probably win more regular season games without PJ Tucker and by having Bobby Portis and this added depth. But what you really care about is putting another ring on Giannis's finger. And George Hill, as I said, with the Philly side, you don't miss him too much. He's getting old. He's been less effective. Grayson Allen, I like, and that's what scraped this off an F to a D for me, because I'm like, you get another white wing. But I think I would much rather have PJ Tucker and one of those 3 as opposed to no PJ Tucker and those 3.
Wow, I couldn't disagree more. I feel like the gap between Bobby Portis and PJ Tucker is like negligible, and I don't love George Hill. Like, I think George Hill is like old and like potentially like is he a skeleton at this point.
Let's just say he's the 3rd person regardless. Like, would you rather George Hill, Bobby Portis, or PJ Tucker? Sorry, Grayson Allen.
Well, I mean, I just don't think that PJ Tucker actually brings that much value. I think PJ Tucker is one of the more glaring examples of like NBA fake news, where
the most glaring, obviously, being Patrick Beverley.
Yeah, potentially. What's PJ Tucker good at? And here's what he's supposed to be good at. He's supposed to be a good spot up shooter. He's not, because he averaged 4 points a game, and he doesn't want to shoot. And you have correctly identified that when he does shoot, it's like a fucking,
his jump shot's really aged.
It's like a fucking trebuchet at the Battle of Crecy in the 100 Years War, just taking up like 45 minutes to reload.
You happy with yourself with that one?
Yeah, all in a day's work for me. He's not actually a good defender, because he's 4 hard fouls a game because he's got rock hard pectorals, and
he probably fouls 7 times a game. Keep in mind, he gets a bit of leeway.
Yeah, there you go. He's not someone who's super good at defending in space. I know that it's not a fair example to say, well, he couldn't stop Kevin Durant, so he's a bad defender. But like, he's not this player who you're in the postseason saying like, throw him on KD and you feel okay about it. You don't. KD was the best player on the floor in that series, the whole series long. He had one of the best postseason games anyone's ever seen, playing exclusively on PJ Tucker. And it's like, not to make it like a Bucks kind of like Budenholzer conversation, but if KD's toe hadn't been on the line for that game-winning 3, we'd be talking about what a fuckwit Budenholzer is for putting PJ Tucker on and thinking that was the problem solved.
But Kevin Durant kicked the shit out of Chris Middleton.
I'm not. Well, I mean, like I'm just saying, like, if you put Chris Middleton on it and Kevin Durant kicks the shit out of you, it's like, okay, I guess
he kicked more shit out of him.
PJ Tucker is not the kind of player that I think a lot of people still think he is, where you're like, yeah, we'll throw him out there and he's good. Like, he's not a spot up shooter. He's not a roll man. He doesn't really get offensive rebounds at this stage in his career. So what's he out there for? He's out there for D, but you throw him up against someone who's like anyone not trying to back him down, and you can just go around him and he's just going to foul you, which I guess there's some value, but we'll talk about Miami. I love a lot of what Miami did, but bringing him in and paying him $7.5 million a year for the next 2 years is not something that I think is particularly good business. And I think that the difference between Bobby Portis and PJ Tucker is like negligible. Bringing Portis back, and then being able to add like a few like safety valve pieces, like take the Nets approach and be like, we'll get some like specialist niche guys in here, and maybe there's a moment where it's a perfect matchup for Grayson Allen and he hits 5 threes. I think that gives you more upside in the regular season and in the postseason than just paying PJ Tucker $15 million.
Yeah, I just think PJ Tucker is still a better defender than Bobby Portis. And if you want to win the title, you have to go through KD and or LeBron. And I'll just be like, now KD just kicked the shit out of Chris Middleton and
PJ Tucker.
But he kicked more shit out of Chris Middleton. It's like, and it's not like, okay, we'll go out and get Trevor Ariza because he signed elsewhere. The equation is PJ Tucker and one of these dudes, or these 3 dudes. And if your goal is to beat Kevin Durant, get the dude who is slightly better on Kevin Durant.
We'll agree to disagree. I think
disagree.
I think we should put the PJ Tucker Bobby Portis to an Instagram poll and see what the people think.
But see, Bobby Portis has got the people because he's got that meme where he's got big eyes.
Well, you mean
that's an unfair discussion.
Is that meme just him existing?
Yeah. Anyway, you and I talking. You gave him a C+, and I gave him a D. I hope Rodney Hood plays well basketball again. Move on to the LA Lakers.
Yeah, let's move on to the Lakers.
So the Lakers drafted nobody. They re-signed Taylor Horton Hears Tucker at 3 for $31. Then they signed, everyone is a minimum apart from Kendrick Nunn. They signed Melo Anthony, Dwight Howard, Trevor Ariza, Wayne Ellington, Rajon Rondo, Kent Bazemore, Malik Monk, Mac McClung, non-guaranteed, Sean D. Brown, and they traded for Russell Westbrook, obviously giving up the players that they did. They let Andre Drummond walk, Dennis Schroeder walk, Alex Caruso walk, Mark Morris, and Ben McLemore.
Mark Morris, fucking hell.
And like, I am shocked you gave them a B here. I gave them a D+. And the plus and the D comes from just the fact that LeBron's able to snap his fingers and just minimum dudes come play with him. I think that's incredible. And they did get heaps and heaps of value off the minimum, like not even just like Dwight Howard and Trevor Ariza, like Malik Monk and like Nuns, whatever. Malik Monk on the minimum. Like, I think that's incredible. And like, I wish him all the open threes in the world. But I think, just like I was saying with the Bucks, I think bringing in Russell Westbrook makes you worse in the playoffs. It makes you better in the regular season, but the goal here is to win in the playoffs. And as soon as you've got a pick and roll with either LeBron or Russ and Anthony Davis, one of the 2 dudes, being LeBron and Russ, are going to be standing elsewhere waiting for the ball to come to him. And the defense doesn't really has to respect him. And look, you give the ball to LeBron James because he's the best player in the world. So what's Russ doing? He's going to cut, or he's just going to not play defense, or he's going to sit there. And I'm just also not a Russ fan, so this is probably really bad. But I don't like this. I don't think it brings them closer to a title.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And I just want to stress that my giving them a B isn't necessarily because of basketball reasons.
Right.
Because a few episodes ago, like 4 or 5 episodes ago, I when this trade was fresh, I came on here and I railed against it because I think that, it's silly and it shouldn't have been done. But I'm giving them a B because, you know what? YOLO, may as well. Put it all into a snow globe, shake it all up, see what happens. You might win a ring, you might not, but I found myself over time, drifting further towards the side of the team that they had was going to be, like, I think necessarily like capped a little bit. And if you squint here, you can say, well, there's a 10% chance that they've just increased their chance of actually winning a chip quite drastically. And I think at this point, rather than run out a team that I think was pretty clear would have taken a step back, at least a step back from when they did win the ring. You just say, all right, let's try something drastically different. If the upside is that we win the ring, we play Brooklyn in the finals and have a genuine chance to actually beat them, then do it. May as well. If it fucks up and it doesn't come off, you can reload again in a year with different minimum guys. LeBron will still be there. AD will still be there. Russell Westbrook will still be there. But you're not going to lose that appeal for coming to play with LeBron, barring it all, exploding spectacularly, which, LeBron is there, so it's not going to explode spectacularly. The downside here is just that they finished 7th again, not that it just doesn't work. And, like Westbrook is exiled to Siberia. And I think the fact that they are all minimums aside from Kendrick Nunn means you just load up again on minimum guys who want to come and play with LeBron next year if it doesn't work.
I think the best dudes to have it around LeBron AD pick and roll are guys like Alex Caruso and Kentavious Caldwell.
If you fucking say I was going to say, don't say Wayne Ellington.
No, like they're going to miss Caruso and KCP just for high usage dudes there.
What about Kuzma?
Like Kuzma.
What about Kuzma looking so smooth and fluid this offseason?
He definitely did.
Videos?
Not even that. He did set like committed to his role last season, the season prior, and like that's nice. I really hope he looks up to Bradley Beal the same way he looks up to LeBron. But why would you?
Well, I mean, he's taller than Bradley Beal, so logistically, probably couldn't.
I mean, I'm so happy that Washington was able to make this move. But just imagine if they didn't trade for Dennis Schroeder and they still had Danny Green, still had KCP, still had Caruso. That is exactly what you want around a superstar pick and roll.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, there's just no way they could bring back Caruso, And I think is there an argument to be made that you'd rather have Monk, Ellington, Rondo, and Bazemore, and none than
I don't want Bazemore in any.
No, but you know what I mean. Like you condense Macklemore's $13 million salary into 5 other dudes.
Macklemore.
The second time I've done it, KCP. Fuck me.
When was the first time you did that?
I couldn't remember James Jones' name. 7 minutes into the podcast, I was like, what's his name again? My guy. No, I think you condense KCP's $13 million cap hit into a bunch of guys who can do similar things, some different things, and you just kind of say, all right, if Malik Monk at best gives us 70% of what
he scored
KCP
against North
does.
Carolina.
Yeah, well, what's 70% of 47? It's probably fucking heaps. If he's good, if none is good, which we know none is good. If Rondo can give you anything, if Bazemore can give you anything, you know what Ellington's going to give you. I think there's reasonable expectation there that the cumulative impact of those players, not to mention the positional flexibility that it gives you, would be more than what you would have had you just kept KCP. And it's just not feasible for this team to pay Caruso $9 million a year. They're happy to go into the tax, but I think they'd say for the right reasons. And you're bringing back Horton Tucker, and you just don't have that extra money to spend on Caruso.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's power through and go to the Dls Mavericks, who drafted no one. They re-signed Tim Hardaway Jr. on 4 for $75, Luka Doncic on 5 for $207, and Boban Marjanovic on 2 for $7. They signed Sterling Brown at 2 for $6 and Reggie Bullock for 3 for $30, and they ended up with Moses Brown in a trade. I think this was pretty neutral, and this is sort of the downside of not getting Giannis Antetokounmpo when he was supposed to be a free agent, and he cleared the cap space for him. So I've just given them a C. They got stuck in the bird rights trap, the Tim Hardaway Jr., where it's just like, you can go over your cap to sign him, but if you don't like Tim Hardaway Jr., you can't go over the cap to sign any other shooting guard on the market. And it's like, fine, that's like, THJ is awesome next to Luka, and he's just a shooter who hits threes. That's fine. You got another shooter who hits threes in Reggie Bullock. Just all nice. Keep Luka. You got no player option on the 5th year for that Luka deal, which is nice, very nice, especially with the instability in that front office. And it's just like Luka pick and roll with Porzingis, who isn't very good at basketball anymore, and shooters. It's like that's you're just doing it again, but Luka gets better. Maybe you can do something with the zinger mid-season. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I feel pretty similar. I've gone C+. I think there's, I'm a big Hardaway Jr. fan, like comparatively, I think, to a lot of people, but I think there is reason to suspect that he's possibly not going to be able to replicate the highs of the last 2 seasons. Like I don't necessarily think that he's like a stable asset. And you're like, this is who he is. He's going to hit 4 threes a game and he's going to average 19 points a game. And so they've given him a contract that's pretty much just the exact contract that the Knicks gave him all of those years ago. Obviously the cap's gone up, a lot, and the contract's a little bit less, but it's still a big number when you look at it, like 75 million over 4 years. Like, fuck me, that's a lot for Tim Hardaway Jr. I do like them bringing in Bullock, possibly a little bit rich, but I think there's merit in the idea of following through on what they did last year and just saying, let's surround Luka with big shooters. Obviously didn't work out with Josh Richardson, who they've exiled to Boston, but I think Bullock is a demonstrated good,
higher floor than Josh Richardson, less risk.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not going to ask him to do as much as they asked Richardson to do, so there's going to be less for him to fail anyway. Just rock up, play good D, hit 38% of your threes, and we'll call that a win. And Sterling Brown's a nice buy low, but ultimately this is like more of the same, and I think that is uninspiring if you can't bank on a drastic improvement from Porzingis, which obviously, if you are banking on that, then you might be Mark Cuban. So,
and if you're Mark Cuban, you got other things to look at. As a money thing, I didn't mean to sound weird. So the Portland Trailblazers are our next team, who drafted Greg Brown. And I've written "Don't care" plus you're smelly. They re-signed Norman Powell at 5 for $90, similar with the bird rights trap to Tim Hardaway Jr. Then they signed a bunch of minimums with Ben McLemore, Cody Zeller, Tony Snell, Marquise Chris, and Dennis Smith Jr. How about that for a list of players? And then the final thing they did, which was quite late in the offseason, which is trade for Larry Nance Jr., which is like the fucking one of the best moves of the whole entire offseason. So what this has done for me is everything was a C. The Chauncey Billups deal probably brought them, the Chauncey Billups coming in as coach probably brought them. We didn't talk about Jason Kidd in the Dell section, but that happened. So the Chauncey Billups thing brings them down below a C, but I'm that high on Larry Nance that he's buffed them up a full letter grade from D+ to C+. He's the role player to end all role players, the one to make things right in Portland. And Damian Lillard today said that he's committed to Portland. So there you go. He must feel the same way about Larry Nance Jr.
Yeah, Damian Lillard is committed to Portland until he's not. So we'll see what happens. Am I obligated to call Ben McLemore Contavious Caldwell-Pope just to like balance it out here, or are we just going?
You're obligated to call Marquise Chris Dragon Bender.
Yeah, no, I've got room for both Marquise Chris and Dragon Bender. I don't want to condense them. I'm not that high on Larry Nance. I think he's good, but I'm not going to be going about any business of bumping him up a full letter grade here. I think bringing back Norman Powell, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Lot of money for a redundant skill set because he's
just a small guard.
It's just 3J. They've got 3 of the same guy. It's like have 2 of the same guy. And then it's like, we're stacking strengths. Have 3 of the same guy. And it's like, well, I'd rather just have my 20 million back. Thanks. McLemore, Snell, Chris, and Smith Jr. is just like a morass of uninspiring basketball talent. Yeah. And in Dennis Smith Jr.'s case, it's just sad, bro. Just go to China. Literally just fucking rip it up with Guangdong Tigers and feel good about yourself. I do like Cody Zeller coming in as like a pretty cheap Zach Collins replacement. Pretty similar players, can do a lot of the same things. And not to get like too nitty gritty, but like I think there's some decent interplay potential between Cody Zeller and Nurkic when they're on the floor, like that.
When they're on the floor, key element there.
Well, I mean, we'll see with Nurkic. Like it might be the year that he kind of like turns it all around. And then he'll be able to have that sweet 14 minutes a game with Zeller. But yeah, I've gone C because I just think that they didn't really bring anybody in who's a floor raiser. They locked in Powell, who's not a floor raiser, on a big a big juicy deal, and not even the draft edition of Greg Brown could swing it. So
yeah, I haven't been mentioning players drafted in the second round until the Milwaukee Bucks drafted old mate Georgios Kalazanakis.
There you go. Not quite, but
I didn't. I just mentioned that because he was guaranteed. I believe Greg Brett. No one cares. No one's listening to that. If Nurkic and Cody Zeller are injured, pretty common occurrences. Larry Nance is starting at the center.
Well, Larry Nance. How much of the last 2 seasons has Larry Nance spent injured? The answer is
sorry about it.
A bit. It's been a little bit. So if he's your safety net, if your safety net is just as much of an injury risk as your other guys, then what's going on? Larry Nance never played a full season. The most games he's ever played in the season is 67. He played 35 last year and 56 the year
God, he's good when he does it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know Larry Nance led the league in deflections per minute, Sean. I know that. But how much is it going to matter on this team? I don't know. And that's
all right. I'll clip that and I'll save it for later. Do you want to talk us through the New York Knicks moves?
So through the draft, they've added Quentin Grimes and Miles McBride. They brought back Julius Randle on a pretty reasonable 4 for $117 deal. They also brought back D Rose, Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, and Taj Gibson. And then in free agency, they signed Evan Fournier, don't Google his name, and Kemba Walker, who came back on a 2-year, $18 million deal. They said goodbye to Frankie Smokes, Reggie Bullock, and the carcass of Alfred Payton being nibbled at by scavenging rodents. They dragged him out of Times Square.
It's wild. He goes from starting point guard under Tibbs to third string point guard on a good team. That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, should Tibbs be fired for taking a third string quality point guard and making him the starter over, not even on a team where there's bad point guard play, on a team where he was a third string quality point guard? I guess that's a real existential NBA question. You've given them a C+. I've given them a B. I'll cede the floor to you first, given your intimate history with this team after writing for the Knicks wall.
So they won both of their draft trades. So that they entered the draft with like 20, 29 and 21 or something like that. And they ended up taking Quentin Grimes and Miles McBride 25th and 36th. And they won both their draft trades by being able to move back, still pick a guy who looks good, at least look good in summer league, and also picked up assets on the way, which is just great. It's like, awesome. The Knicks are competent. This is incredible. Julius Randle locking him in. You got the whole PR of, hey, he took less. He could have taken this. And it's like, he could have taken that if he makes all NBA next year. Probably pretty smart, Julius. I really don't like the Derrick Rose deal. I'm just really concerned about the injury risk. That's shock and awe. You heard it here first. Someone is worried about Derrick Rose's injury history. Alec Burks, I'd rather give that exact same amount of money to Reggie Bullock, but I'm really not going to debate the Burks or Bullock here. Nerlens Noel finally getting properly paid. Hopefully, he doesn't sue his agent again. Taj Gibson, 2 for $10 million to be, the Udonis Haslam type. That's fine. I mean, like, it's Tom Thibodeau. What do you expect? Evan Fournier is an extremely tradable contract, which is exactly what it's going to be used for. I don't think he finishes. I would wager quite a lot of money that he doesn't finish that deal with the New York Knicks. And Kemba Walker just magically signs and leaves exactly the right amount of money on the table for OKC, just enough so he could just perfectly fit under the cap for the New York Knicks. I think there's just coincidence in the making.
Don't say the T word.
Coincidence. Tampering. Yeah, it's just like I don't like. It's a Tibbs team, and like their best wing scorers, RJ Barrett, the ghost of Kemba Walker, and like, who's enjoyed watching Evan Fournier outside of a France jersey in like the last decade? Did you know he used to play for Denver? Like, that's a fun fact. Don't Google his name. I'm just uninspired by this free agency period. And I gave him a C+ because they did a good job, but I would love to tune into this team when they trade for Zach LaVine or Bradley Beal halfway through the year.
Yeah, Zach LaVine here would be fun. I think the reason for me why I'm a little bit more optimistic about these deals than you is that in almost all of the multi-year deals, the third, in some cases the third, and in all cases the fourth year is like completely unguaranteed or has team option. So they're actually for much less than the sticker price, and for a shorter time period as well, which means that they can be used, like you say, Evan Fournier's deal should literally just there as trade fodder. He's just going to be put in to make up, 60% of the salary of the star that they need to bring in. But those other guys, they can kind of say, all right, take your pick of the Rose contract, the Noel contract, and the Burks contract just to like bump up the number to whatever else. And I think the benefit of bringing back Burks maybe over Bullock is that Burks isn't quite the defender or the shooter, the 3-and-D player that Bullock is, but he's got a little bit more sizzle.
Didn't I say I don't want to debate it?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not debating it. I'm here to make an ironclad point that belies any feedback. He's got a little bit more sizzle off the bounce. He's do a little bit more as a scorer, which the Knicks outside of Julius Randle were fucking terrible. So I think maintaining one good like offensive role player who can actually dribble the ball, whose name's not Derrick Rose, is probably a good thing. And then Kemba Walker, like if he's good, he's good. Listeners will know that we've been very reticent to put too much faith in Kemba Walker staying on the court. But for this price, I mean, you may as well, like you got to do it and hope that he can get some of that UConn magic back. So I think a B is fair because they haven't actually, despite the high dollar value on a lot of these deals, they haven't actually locked themselves in for like big money and big years. It's just medium money and medium years that are ultimately going to serve the purpose of trading for, like you said, a Bradley Beal or a Zach LaVine.
Yeah,
and they didn't.
It looks worse than it is.
Yeah, the numbers make it look worse than it is, and I think Fournier, like no one's had fun watching him, but he's going to be a valuable addition to this offense. That at least again there is someone that's not Randle that you're like worried about, like maybe this guy will score 18 points in a game, which is not necessarily something that they had outside of the first 10 games of Emmanuel Quickly last season. They didn't really lose anybody of value. Elf Payton and Frankie Smokes. So I think
that the lads,
the lads, the gang. I think at the very worst, they improved themselves slightly, which for a team that is essentially just treading water and waiting for a big star consolidation trade to come along, improving yourself slightly whilst not taking on too much long-term money, I think is tapping into a bit of the Hannah Montana lifestyle and getting the best of both worlds.
And you can read more. I was going to tease this at the end, but you can read more about this massive trade market we're about to see on the deep2.com. I can't believe it's that easy, the deep2.com. And I wrote an article about the NBA's huge game of dominoes that the league seems to have set up, signing all these contracts, but not expecting to keep these players. If you look for PointsBet's stock exchange listing, you'll find a bucket of jargon and doublespeak as they're considered a, quote, wagering services operator, unquote. That's a corporate stretch for the colloquial friendly brogan or, hey, look, it's Chris Bosh kind of image they're sending off with their targeted advertising. I don't know about you, but take me back to the days when former pro sports players signed brand deals with hair loss clinics or Fujitsu aircons, not, quote, wagering service providers.
If you're scrolling through your Facebook feed and you come across the two of our faces morphed into one, would that make you listen to our podcast more? I mean, if it does, let us know and we'll start doing it. But when I see a few NBA players' faces morphed into one, it doesn't make me want to pull out my wallet and donate some money to my local wagering services provider.
The worst part is we're coming to accept it. Wagering service provider ads are so ingrained in our sports and the way sports is delivered to us, it's almost impossible to avoid. 3/4 of Australian children aged between 8 and 16 years who watch sport think that betting on sport is normal and can name more than one or more sport betting companies. When I was in school, I was struggling to remember Pokemon names, and I'd be furious if I knew that brain power was being used to put towards wagering service providers and not them.
The wagering service providers know exactly who to target. It's not okay to let them ingrain themselves in young Australians' minds. It's not okay to target people in the middle of a pandemic, and it's not okay for gambling companies to wield so much influence in the world of sports. To help kick gambling out of sport, use your voice and sign the petition at www.endgamblingAds.org.au/petition.
Dante, do you want to give us the particulars for the Atlanta Hawks?
So we've got the Atlanta Hawks up next. So they added Jalen Johnson and Sharif Cooper, who was a surprise faller during the draft. They re-signed John Collins to a 5-125 and brought Clint Capella back on a 2-year 46. They extended Trae Young at the max and then brought back Lou Williams and Solomon Hill. They brought in DeLon Wright via trade, and they said goodbye to Tony Snell, Chris Dunn, and Bruno Fernando. Valet, gentlemen, ye old team shall never be the same. I've given them
unrecognizable Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, the Atlanta Hawks post Chris Dunn, like a city tries to heal itself. I've given them a B. So have you. I think this is another example of just like holding pattern, just saying like we're going to bank on some internal development from our young guys. We're going to keep all the pieces in place. In Jalen Johnson, who people seem to be quite high on, they've got a potential contributor right away and a potential John Collins replacement down the line. And then who better for Sharif Cooper to learn how to shoot from than Sweet Lou in Atlanta, where he can be his fully unbridled lemon pepper Lou alter ego.
Yeah, so I wanted to give the Atlanta Hawks an A for this, just because they have just like a lot of these teams. This is the theme we're seeing this offseason: just trading water, just being ready for that trade should it become available. And like, yes, that's a lot of money for John Collins, 5 for 125, but again, tradable. Clint Capella, which is an extension on top of his 2 years, which will actually make it a little bit icky with Okongwu, because it'll be 1 year of paying Clint Capella $23 million when Okongwu is also properly paid and should be a starting caliber player there, because he does look that good. I'm not going to give them any benefits for signing Trae Young there. It's Trae Young, whatever. If he makes All-NBA, he'll be $207 million. If he doesn't make All-NBA, he'll be $172. And it's like they've kept their flexibility. So as soon as a superstar might become available halfway through the year, you've got John Collins, attach some of those young players you want to. You've got Jalen Johnson. You've just got all these young prospects that they can just throw out here while keeping the core of their team intact. And I just really like what they've done. The reason I've knocked them down to a B is just like that's a lot of money to John Collins and Clint Capella, and it could come back to bite them in a few years if like I said, there isn't a superstar trade available.
I just feel like I'd rather pay Collins $25 million a year than Lonzo Ball $22 million a year.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. I've got a point when we talk about the Bulls next week where it's just like, okay, well, we've talked about it for a year now. Who's right? Like, is Sean going to be right at $20 million for Lonzo, or is Dante going to be right? Like, hey, his shooting was a flash in the pan.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, that's going to be the number one subplot that we're watching this season. Forget the Suns, forget the Warriors. It's Lonzo Ball and his
shooting percentage. We should post weekly updates. Again, like Atlanta Hawks tread water. Do you want to move on to a team that definitely didn't tread water?
Yeah.
Sorry, did I butt in on you? Did you have anything to say about the Hawks?
No, I've said my piece. Let's move on to the Heat.
All right, so the Miami Heat, I'll run through. I gave them an A. They re-signed Jimmy Butler to a lot of money, 4 for 184. Re-signed Duncan Robinson, 5 for 90, and then the rest of minimums, which is Victor Oladipo, UD40, Dwayne Dedman, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Omer Yurtsebitter, and they signed Kyle Lowry to 3 for 85, Mark Morris on the minimum, PJ Tucker, aforementioned, 2 for 14.3. I'm not going to mention like the trades they made in the sign and trade, but they pretty much lost Goran Dragic, Precious Chua, Andre Iguodala, Trevor Ariza, Kendrick Nunn, and Nemanja Bjelica, but obviously roster spots were a concern there. So Dante, why have you given them a B+?
The only things that give me pause here is Lowry, for the same reasons that I've talked about earlier with Paul and Conley. Like I understand you just kind of have to pay the money and give the guy the years. Otherwise, you're not going to get him. But like, Lowry's 36, and
is he vegan yet? Did we already ask that?
If he's not, he will be by age 37. But I think
he plays for OKC.
Like there's well, that's hold on, SGA, we're getting you help. It just gives me pause thinking about the back end of that deal. Obviously, it's a deal made for this season and next season. Like if he's not performing up to his $27 million, $30 million salary in the third year, I think you probably just cop it. But it does just give me pause. And obviously, we've already talked about the battle of the backup fours in PJ Tucker and Bobby Portis. But I don't like PJ Tucker here at $7.5 million. I think that it's just quite honestly a waste of money. But bringing back Robinson, I think it is a lot of money, but he is he's the second best shooter in the league. Like that's just kind of what the second best shooter in the league should be making. You hope that Oladipo can get something going, and if you can, you've got a bargain because of the minimum. And then between Dedmon, Vincent, Strus, that's just soak up some regular season minutes there. Obviously, Jimmy Butler coming back. I think this is a good blend of keeping it together and also adding some elements, in hopefully a healthy Oladipo, because he didn't really play for them last season, and a Lowry that just kind of like. It's kind of when you're making addition, it's pretty good already, but you add like a bay leaf in there early on, a bit of pepper, and then it comes out at the end. You're like, wow, the bay leaf really kind of does make a difference here. Like maybe is Kyle Lowry the bay leaf and Victor Oladipo.
Maybe Parmesan rind.
Yeah, there you go. It's just something that you'd often overlook, or it's too difficult. Like you don't want to buy heaps of it because you're only going to use a little bit in the recipe, so you don't put it in. We've all been there, but when you do put it in, you're like, wow, you can really taste, perfect example. I was making myself a smoothie bowl this afternoon, and I've noticed we've got some passion fruits. So I put the passion fruit in with the mango and the banana, and it just completely changed the flavor scheme of the whole smoothie bowl. And I was sitting there saying to myself, this is great. Like I was talking out loud to myself. So maybe Kyle Lowry's got a little bit of passion fruit potential here.
Yeah. Or another good example would be basil. It's like, yeah, okay, I can buy a basil plant. How many times am I going to cook pasta this week? Probably just once, and then it's going to be dead by the time it's next week. So let's just get the dried stuff, but it really makes a difference just getting that fresh stuff. I've given them an A while you've given them a B+ here. Just because, yes, I've got the same concerns as you with Kyle Lowry, and I share the same concerns with you with PJ Tucker. I'm talking, when I'm defending PJ Tucker, I'm thinking of it more from what the fuck are Milwaukee going to do? They have no reasonable way to replace him. Like, obviously, this Miami team has like Jimmy Butler, and they've got plenty of great defenders that can obviously cover for him and can do very much the same thing. But yeah, it's a lot of money to commit, but I've given them an A because look, if you look at the C, if their vanilla was just to bring the band back, they're still straddling a line because they've got so many assets and so many future draft picks just invested in getting off of Jimmy Butler, but just bringing in Goran Dragic. They've got all these assets thrown across everywhere. So for a team that can't tank, like if they can't tank because they don't own their future, for a team to have to commit in one direction and be able to get the best free agent on the market, to keep Duncan Robinson, to get PJ Tucker, who is at least a player, I think they've done an excellent job. Whether that's the right avenue to go, it's up to other people to say that, but they literally they've got no other options. So it's there's no blowing it up, and they've done a great job of just fully continuing on committing. Probably never going to pick them to win a title, though, would you?
Well, I mean, not whilst they're playing the same conference as Brooklyn, but I think that they definitely added some really good players, and I think that you can't overlook the value of having Vic Oladipo back on a minimum. Just the ability to have him there at effectively no financial risk, because there's a pretty compelling argument that just by virtue of the passage of time, that he's not going to be as bad as he has been in previous years. Maybe he's in a smaller role and he can actually bump that shooting percentage up north of 38, which would be, a huge boon. Like if at the worst, he's a quality role player coming off the bench, and at best he's, a starting level, good scoring defensive guard, like two-way guard, then I think you're in a good place.
He can't get much worse, but what if he's just not healthy again?
Well, then it's nothing, and he's on a minimum, and it's not like it was last year where he's on 20 million and you're sacrificing things to bring him in, like him being there. It's like you just say if you're good, you're good. If you're not, you're the ninth man, and you just won't see more than 18 minutes a game. So I think they're obviously bringing in Lowry with Butler, and then having PJ Tucker there, like Pat Riley, Spoelstra. These are players who've been around. I think there'll be enough kind of like locker room presence that if Oladipo isn't performing to any sort of reasonable expectation, that they won't have a problem with saying that, look, like you're not helping us. Like,
get fucked, please.
This is what your role is going to be. And I think, good luck to Vic Oladipo if he just has to try and take on Lowry, Butler, and PJ Tucker.
Oh, dude, he has to you have to walk before you can run. He's got to take on Max Strus first.
I think B plus A is very good. Let's move on to the Warriors. I'm interested to see what you're gonna say here.
Well, what a good way to end on my Golden State Warriors, who coming in had all these assets and draft picks and things to do, and ended up just using them. So they drafted Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody in the draft. They re-signed Steph Curry to 4 for $215 million. They signed Chris Chorizo to a two-way, Chris Scherzer, and then got Andre Iguodala, Otto Porter Jr., and Nemanja Bjelica on a minimum. They lost Kelly Oubre Jr., Kent Bazemore, Alan Smiley-Gage, how sad, and Nico Mannion. And obviously, as we said before, traded Eric Pascal to the Utah Jazz in one of the weirder trades. It's like I woke up on the morning of the draft and was like, geez, I wonder who the Golden State Warriors are going to have on their basketball team by the time this day is done. And like the reports were, shit, nothing's happening. Shit, no one's available. What are they going to do? Are they just going to have to take these picks? Like, because Steph Curry said he doesn't want to take these picks, blah, blah, blah. You have to get something done. So they drafted two 19-year-olds to try and straddle the line. One of those 19-year-olds is apparently one of the most NBA-ready 19-year-olds ever. I'll believe it when I see it. The other one might be the furthest thing from a ready-made prospect in Jonathan Kuminga. But oh well. Still able to be traded halfway through the year. And look, are the Warriors going for that 2 windows? Maybe, maybe not. I've given them a B because in terms of a team that went around and tried to trade everything and tried to move the farm, didn't like their deals, if they had decided that they're not going to do that thing where they trade, like I've said, like the sort of guy that would be available for this whole, what it seemed like was someone in that Nikola Vucevic range, where it's like no one's giving up Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard, maybe a tier below, maybe not Zach LaVine, maybe it is that Vucevic level. So like, good thing they didn't pull the trigger on someone who's like a tier 3 star. Like you wouldn't trade these 2 picks for Miles Turner, or even one of those picks for Miles Turner, maybe 14, or someone like that. So like, if they're not going to do that, I think they did fine. They got Jonathan Kuminga, who some say is a top 4 level talent. We'll have to see it again. And it's just like, they did good considering they're not swinging for the fences and getting that superstar.
Yeah, I think they did, putting those parameters on it. Yes, they did good, but I think there needs to be a discussion around the fact that they've like misjudged the market quite a bit here. If that was the plan, it was never to make these picks, and they've ended up having to make these picks. And I think the 2 window thing, yes, it's a valuable discussion to be had, but Moses Moody's the 14th pick. And I mean, in what other draft with what other team is anybody ever talking about the 14th pick being like, yeah, this guy, he's really good. And, 7 and 14, like these are, if the Bulls had 7 and 14, they'd be like, well, they weren't high enough to get an actual impact player. But because it's the Warriors, there's a little bit of a change in that discussion. I've buried the lead a little bit. I've given them a C+. But I think with Kuminga and Moody, it's definitely a wait and see. And Iggy's washed. Bjelica wasn't really playing towards the end of last season, and we haven't seen Otto Porter for approximately 10 years. So
I think I saw him on 2K. He's still, he's getting paid $14 million.
Yeah, he's 64 rated these days, probably. I just think that there's not actually a lot of talent added to this roster outside of Klay Thompson returning, because you just can't you can't bank on Kuminga. You especially can't bank on Moody. Like, how many 14th picks have we seen that average 8 minutes a game and play, 40 games?
Shea Gilgeous, Donovan Mitchell, Michael Porter Jr. But no, you're right. You make a good point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's pie in the sky. I'd be happy for you if Moses Moody turns into MPJ. But yeah, I've given him a C+ because obviously they don't really have a lot of scope for bringing in bigger names than what they've done on the minimums. So wait and see. But yeah, it's definitely nothing that makes me feel super great about this team, better than I did about this team, before. So
yeah,
C+.
So yeah, look, at least they got Kuminga, and it wasn't like Josh Giddey or someone that.
Yeah, well, Kuminga was at one point being talked about with those top guys. So at least you'd be able to say that, there appears to be some higher upside than the guys picked around him.
I'm much happier with that than anyone else. But that'll do us for the first half of these off-season grades. Now, obviously, the Golden State Warriors had a tied record they were just ahead of the Memphis Grizzlies. So when we go into the losing conference, what did you say that the winning and losing conference? Start with the Memphis Grizzlies and go all the way down to the Houston Rockets.
It was the good and the bad conference.
The good and the bad, and that's right. So in the meantime, be sure to follow us on all the socials. Check out thedeep2.com. I can't believe it's that easy, thedeep2.com. I can't believe it's not butter. And Dante, do you want to send us off?
Just make sure with that one as well that you hit up Sean's wonderful piece about the dominoes that might fall with the NBA trade market. Is sure to be heating up with Lillard and Simmons, the big names there. So you can see that, as Sean mentioned, on thedeep2.com. And thank you for listening. That's been us.